good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Monday's edition of the Q-Files. It's the 8th of March, 3804, and a lot of events are stirring around the world. One of them is in my home state, and Montana, and we're going to get to that in a minute, but let me give you an update on the precious metals today. Palladium, you know, I've been talking about it for some time, up $14. The ask price now on spot on Kitco is $275 an ounce, and there's about a spread on that of anywhere from $30 to $40. So in other words, if you want to buy palladium, it's going to be up in the $300 to $305 realm. Platinum up $7 to $904. Silver in the aftermarket right now on Kitco showing $7, but on a real live feed that I get from the Orient that I'm not allowed to put up on the screen, or I'd have to pay $10,000 a month. The point is that they're showing 703 to 705. Gold's at 402.50, and what's striking about today is the fact that even though the big-time players are still hammering gold, the platinum group metals are being influenced by Europeans, by the Russians, and also by the Chinese and the Japanese. According to my sources, platinum is going to 1,050. They see palladium up around 260 to 280. Obviously, we're almost in that range right now. I said, where does it go after that? They said the hard point is 300. After 300 on palladium, it's 380. Now, look, when you're on talk radio, as I am, everything I say is recorded, and God knows everybody in the world who's ever been a talk radio host wish they could recall some things and maybe amplify others. But one thing I can tell you is that I have taken a lot of crap from the Goldfinger individuals when I was telling people to buy silver at $4.50, and they were saying to go ahead and sell your worthless silver and buy their expensive gold. Guess what? Their expensive gold is worth even less than they've priced it, and now silver is approaching 7.25 to 7.5. Now I want to read my update on the Steve Quayle website for you. Holly was gracious enough to update this. I'm going to try and stay on a little better than I have. But I put as of March 9th, silver is poised to challenge the 7 to 725 range. Palladium is ready to test 260 to 280. This was posted earlier this morning, and it did already. It's already mid-range. Platinum should challenge 925 to 975, and gold should test 400 to 450. Now, here's the important point that I want everybody who's in metals to understand and not get crazy and worried. Precious metals owners should be prepared for an announcement in the next 1 to 3 weeks that Osama bin Laden has been captured or killed. This will temporarily cause precious metals to try maybe their 60-day lows. However, this will be short-lived. When Saddam was captured, precious metals went down initially upon the news but recovered totally within about 24 hours. So understand, when Osama bin Laden is either stated to have been captured or killed, expect a little pullback. And, you know, it could be on silver, it could get as low as 635. On gold, it could get as low as 385. Platinum and palladium, however, are going to be exempt and void from that because at this point they're not marching to that tune of world headlines at all. So, ladies and gentlemen, again, I want you to know that overseas right now on the live feeds are showing silver at 704. They're showing palladium, and tonight should be the telltale night. Palladium could go 10 to 15 bucks tonight, and if that's the case, then you could expect platinum to be up around the 925 to 935 by the end of this week, maybe even higher. But again, what this is telling you is that there's a lot of not happy campers out there in investment land, but very serious and worried people. We're going to get to it in the show, but I want to take you now to a concern I've had so long. I've articulated on a Coast to Coast, as George Norrie and Art have both been gracious to have me on from time to time. But this is the fact that we have a plan in the United States for biosafety level 4 research facilities to be placed throughout the country. Now, in Hamilton, Montana the other night, there was a serious incident, everyone. And it just came out. Forgive me, it came out the other night, but it actually happened in February. They covered up. Now, I want to thank Patricia Doyle. As you know, I think Dr. Patricia Doyle is one of the most outstanding minds and the bravest women, and absolutely a woman that I have to give her, not have to, I love to give her the respect and the kudos. She doesn't do this for them, but the Bible says give credit to whom credit is due. And she's been valiant, she's been gallant, and she's been fighting a horrific battle in her body. And I ask you to continue to pray for her, because she really is out there, ladies and gentlemen, on the front lines. But let me read this to you, because this will blow your mind. You know, I mean, it's not bad enough that they have Rocky Mountain spotted fever, you know, in live cultures up in Hamilton, Montana. But now they want to turn into a BSL, Biosafety Level 4, and deal with everything from Ebola, Marburg, all the deadliest of deadly, smallpox, all the horrific pathogens. And what I noticed about the placement of these things, when I correlated them with the wind patterns and with, quote, accidental/intentional releases that cover the entire United States. Now, if that doesn't make you get a little upset and maybe increase your pucker factor, it should. Let me go on. Listen to this. This is actually horrific, ladies and gentlemen, so I'm going to try and shut up so I can read this to you. Everyone said thank you. Rocky Mountain Laboratory workers arrived at work to feed research animals on the morning of Sunday, February 8th, and found dead monkeys. During the night, a thermostat malfunction had spiked temperatures in the animal holding facility to 100 degrees compared to the 72-degree normal temperature. An emergency alarm went off, but the signal didn't even reach the facility guards, even though they're on site 24 hours a day. Number one, you'd want to know, are they all males? Are they male and female? And was there hanky-panky or just hokey-pokey going on between the guards? But understand what I'm trying to say. Here's a facility, Hamilton, Montana, where some of the richest people in the world live, okay? I mean, Charles Schwab. We got guys up in Hamilton, Montana that, you know, they don't count their millions, they count their billions. But right in their backyard, we have a specific facility that is so, how do I say this, incredibly and inanely guarded with absolute potential for a meltdown, which actually they had a melt up, and now it just comes out almost a month later. Listen to this. This is an amazing thing. An emergency alarm went off in Hamilton, Montana, but the signal didn't reach facility guards, even though they're on site 24 hours a day. The death toll included 13 squirrel monkeys, 74 hamsters used in chronic wasting disease research. 13 additional squirrel monkeys survived the ordeal, as well as all 14 of the macaw monkeys. The monkeys that died were confined in cages close to the ceiling where hot air collected. The alarm mechanism has since been rewired to better notify guards of future episodes. Anybody getting upset with me on this one? Do you understand that you have absolute, inane, stupid morons guarding some of the most virulent, deadly pathogens in the world, and here we have an accident in my backyard. Let's see, Hamilton's about 200 miles to the northwest of me by air, and we've got a potential. Now someone said, well, nothing leaked out. Oh yeah? How do you know? If these guys have a moron factor of 50, you really think that we're being told the truth? Now listen to this. This has got to be amazing. But at a time when the facility is trying to convince the public of the safety merits of a proposed biosafety level 4 expansion, the monkey incident casts doubts on the lab's credibility. Absolutely. If granted level 4 status, the lab will be handling more than just monkeys. It will be in charge of protecting Hamilton from the deadly viruses to be studied in the expanded facility, the deadly of which is Ebola. Friends of the Bitterroot member, Jim Olson, called the malfunction another, you can't say it, another example of stuff not working like it's supposed to be. And I would even say this to Jim Olson. I think I've talked to him on the phone. Hey, Jim, this stuff is working exactly like it's not supposed to. In other words, this is a design parameter that's incorporated in this stuff. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you may say, well, that's Montana. Thank God it's not this or that or the other thing. Understand, if these bioweapons labs are placed in the areas, now listen, where these things should be placed is in the most remote areas of the world. They can do it in the Arctic and the Antarctic if they're going to do it. They can do it like on Plum Island, which we already know what happens to Plum Island when the auxiliary power shuts down. You've got to know that if you don't start speaking up, everyone, you cannot absolutely blame anyone for the epitaph that's going to be written on your grave. And that's if you're lucky enough to be buried with an epitaph. Now listen to this. If granted level 4 status, the lab will be handling more than just monkeys. It will be in charge of protecting Hamilton from the deadly viruses. Goes on to say, Rocky Mountain Laboratory Associate Director Marshall Bloom notes that the response comes from a group known to oppose the lab's expansion. Listen, if you're a bloody moron and you can't even control your temperature because you can't find your freaking guards, I said freaking, and these people are dealing with some of the most hazardous, look, they may not be dealing with BSL-4 stuff, but they could have a release of anything else that, like chronic wasting disease. You know, all they need is a bunch of hamsters infected running around. Now, granted, they should not put two-legged hamsters in charge of the security up there, but, you know, the typical response is Marshall Bloom notes that response comes from a group known to oppose the lab's expansion. Listen to this. More reasonable people, Bloom says, have been impressed with how rapid and completely Rocky Mountain Labs evaluated the situation. Oh, thank God he's in charge of my mouth tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, what's happening is that, you know, this is, again, a moronic factor that I have run out of words how to describe this. And when I read this today, I just absolutely went ballistic. I mean, if you hear reports of UFOs, it is not a UFO tonight. It is me in orbit. Because, you know, it's reassuring that if something, Bloom, the guy that is taking on the people of the community, Patricia said, when Ebola escapes in the night, Hamiltonians can sleep soundly knowing they'll be notified first thing in the morning. People don't want to know that you messed up. People want to know that everything is in place so that you don't mess up. And again, I've got to tell you something. If you understand that this sort of thing goes on all over the country, not just in Hamilton, Montana, you'll maybe get a feel for the frustration that so many of us, actually I take that back, so few of us have raised our voices about. Because again, this is a serious issue that we're dealing with. Now, this is coming from Fort Detrick, okay, and Fort Detrick, Maryland. And that's where the U.S. Amaret is located. And let me release, this is going to be amazing to you, okay? Again, thanks to Patty Doyle. The Army released a Fort Detrick researcher from quarantine Wednesday. She's the woman who accidentally stuck herself with a hypodermic needle containing the Ebola virus last month. The scientist was exposed to a weakened strain of the Ebola virus. February 11th, she was put into quarantine the next day. The Army told News 11 that she showed no symptoms of the disease during her 21-day stay at the Medical Research Institute at their Biosafety Containment Unit. Michael Shearer, March-April 2004 issue. It has been called a modern-day Manhattan Project, a spending spree so vast and rapid that it might change the face of biological science. In the wake of 9/11, U.S. government is funding a massive new biodefense research effort, redirecting up to $10 billion towards projects related to biological weapons such as anthrax. The Pentagon's budget for chemical and biological defense has doubled. High-security nuclear weapons labs have begun conducting genetic research on dangerous pathogens. Universities are receiving government funding to build high-tech labs equipped to handle deadly infectious organisms, and Fort Detrick, Maryland, once the home of America's secret bioweapons program, is about to break ground on 2 new high-tech biodefense centers. Officials say the effort is designed to head off what a recent CIA report calls the darker bioweapons future. Intelligence briefings are awash with speculation about other nations or terrorists developing genetically engineered pathogens, worse than any disease known to man. And what we're dealing with right now, how do I say this, is an absolute lack of care, concern, or consciousness in the American public. Gee, should that come as a surprise to anybody, including me? And I think, everyone, that we've got to come to the conclusion that it's very, very, very important that you follow these issues. Look, when I wrote Breathe No Evil, not a pitch for the book, just putting things into historic perspective, nobody cared, nobody gave a darn, and nobody wanted to publish the book. 3 weeks prior to the Tokyo subway gas attack, I went on the radio. It was Duncan Long and I were talking on, the Johnstown, Colorado, KHNC or whatever, and I just went on record saying within 3 weeks there would be a biological or chemical release in a major city of the world. And lo and behold, sarin nerve gas gets released in Tokyo, the subway. Now, let me bring it to home. Wyoming has had an elk die-off that absolutely is explainable, but it's baffling the scientists. A friend of mine down there is one of the best connected guys I know in the world, okay? Let me say that again. A friend of mine is one of the best connected guys I know in the world. He was told by his military sources in Wyoming that it was a spraying of a nerve agent, which was a derivative of malathion. I think they call it L-thion triple-aught-8. L-thion triple-aught-8. And the experiment got out of hand. Now, you can ask yourself, why would a nerve agent be sprayed on an elk herd in Wyoming? Now, this is in the Red Canyon area of Wyoming, and I think it's about 18 miles around the Rawlins area, Rawlins, Wyoming. And what's interesting is the fact that, again, these are military people speaking off the record to people that want to know what's going on. So, ladies and gentlemen, malathion, which is an insecticide, was an offshoot of the Nazi chemical weapons development program. L-thion triple-aught-8, 0008, or 0008, not O, 0008, was a derivative. It's what the Germans used against U.S. troops during World War II. And it absolutely puts them into a stupor, and they have no cognizant or response that they can make, and basically you just walk up, according to what I was told from this gentleman, he said, and we had a bunch of our guys with their throats slit during World War II. He said that it functions at really a high level, 140, 210 degrees, and it was similar to what's called Lexthion. And by the way, I'm sorry, it was the Red River south of Landers. And he said it's interesting because he said the talk of those in the know is they're scared absolutely out of their minds. Now, if you remember a movie with George C. Scott back in what was it, late 60s, early 70s? Forgive me, it was in the early 70s. It was called Rage, R-A-G-E. And the story was a very similar. Listen, you can take this elk situation and put it right into the sheep situation of the movie Rage with George C. Scott. Those of you who have seen it know what I'm talking about. Those of you who haven't seen it, I encourage you to go and rent the video. And the gist of it is, ladies and gentlemen, at this point, I have not heard of any human deaths associated with this. Now, let me make it clear to you what's going on. The wildlife that all of you are counting on living off of in the forest, those of you who are mountain men, I'm not making fun of you. You got to know that that's already been considered and taken into account. The powers that be have already articulated and defined specific pathogens that will work through a birth cycle of the progeny of deer and elk and the ungulates. They also have a plan that in case they don't want to wait that long, they can waste them all. And when you've got an elk herd and you've got choppers, you can basically herd the choppers, or you can, by using the choppers, you can herd the elk into a canyon or whatever, spray them, and they're all dead. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's getting so dark and so late in the game that I'm amazed. I truly am. And then in the background, I forget the name of the tune, and the band played on do-do-do, and the do-do-do, that's my little attempt at giving you the melody. But the point is that please take notice of what I'm talking about tonight, because this is critical. This is absolutely horrendous. Now, the Fish and Game in Wyoming is just saying, gee, we don't know what kind of disease this is. And for the record, most vets will not have the ability, unless they've got a mass spectrometer and gas chromatographs and all the stuff that's going to be necessary to really identify this organophosphate. But again, ladies and gentlemen, what's going on in Wyoming? And if you want to send me your thoughts, you can send me an email, and I'll go ahead and read them on the air. But the point that I want to make very clearly to all of you is the fact that the news is becoming more and more pointed, more and more targeted to the fact that ethnically specific bioweapons. There was a story, I think, on Rents or some of the other news talk radio shows that they're talking about biospecific weapons, that the Israelis have one that'll go against the Arabs. Well, no offense, that's old news. And it's old news because Wouter Bassan, who underwent 2 years of a trial in South Africa, was the progenitor or the lead scientist of that. Those bioweapons, by the way, are so genetically specific now that they can be unleashed with incredible accuracy and incredible deadliness I think the ethnic-specific bioweapons now are up in the neighborhood of 90–95%. It's the same thing that was developed in Africa, and that's why so many things broke out in Africa, because they were testing genetically specific bioweapons on blacks. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that's a true story. And it's horrendous, it's heinous, it's wicked, it's evil, it's straight out of the cauldrons of hell. But listen, the darkest imagination, the most fantasizing imagination can't even begin to grasp what these wicked ones have planned. So it's not something wicked this way comes. Something wicked this way has come. Something wicked has been released. And the release is worse than anything that Pandora could have ever imagined. So, ladies and gentlemen, again, I want you to know that the specific statements that I have gotten from Wyoming, and I have talked to no military source, but my friend has, and keep in mind is that he's one of the best connected guys I know in the country. He knows specifically what's happened. He himself has been suffering from the poisoning of this stuff. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's very, very important to recognize that this is serious. Now, let me read this because Robert sent me something. Okay, this is from Robert. Hi, Robert. He says, Steve, just to keep you informed and to compare observations, today our sky is mostly clear of cloud cover after typical Washington rain for this time of year. Nevertheless, we are getting hammered with chemtrails over Port Angeles, Washington area. They are laying them right inside one another, and our sky is patterned with these things. Just thought you should know. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the things that is gotten probably more curiosity. Let me tell you, you want to know what the Black Ops people watch? They watch websites that are dealing with chemtrails beyond anything and everything. And I want you to know something, that the chemtrail issue is so incredibly ominous that it becomes more and more pertinent and more perplexing by day. Listen, years ago, before Henry Thomas or anybody came on the scene, we were talking about EDB, ethylene dibromide being in the chemtrail sprays. We were talking about the secret programs. Actually, someone said, maybe, Steve, the word should be pogroms, where you kill a bunch of people like Stalin in Russia and Mao in China, the pogroms. But I guess the chemtrail, by the way, I'm going to start using that. I'm going to start using the chemtrail pogroms instead of the chemtrail programs. This was an offshoot of Majestic 12. You'll see that whole thing. If those of you that don't understand the secrecy that's involved with quote-unquote alien technology, hybrid life forms, secret ops, black ops, stuff that goes on in the outer surface of the inner earth, talking about the things that go bump in the night. All I can share with you is that it's amazing how much concern is exhibited and spent by those in the different aspects of the government when we're talking about chemtrails. Now, Pastor Tom Carlson called me, and he had a great point, and I haven't had a chance yet to bounce this off Stan Dale because I just spaced it out until now. But the deal is that with all the metallic metals, the powdered aluminum and the barium and the different isolates that are in a lot of the chemtrail spray, he asked me a question. What will happen? I don't know the answer to this. Any of you engineers want to take this on, please feel free to. What will happen when they start becoming exposed to high energy pulse fields like HAARP and others? By the way, ladies and gentlemen, I've been told by those in the know that HAARP, when it's tuned up to full power, I can't say I know this for a fact, I can only tell you I've been told this, that they can look into the ground 6 miles deep. 6 miles, 30,000 feet. In other words, they can CAT scan the Earth. Now, I don't know what that does to oceans, and I don't know what that does to different mineral deposits, i.e. a high area of iron mineralization. Would it be the same as a low area of mineralization? I mean, there are a lot of questions I would have to ask. But again, the fact that Robert asked me about or told me what's going on in the Port Angeles, Washington area, he said that it's very, very important that people understand. Now, today in Montana, I think it's about 60 degrees, and we've got blue sky. I have not seen them spraying today, but that means that they haven't got to us yet. So my guess, if we've got a high-pressure area over the state of Montana, they'll start spraying tonight. And we're, I think, coming out of a full moon, so it'll be easy to see them. Ladies and gentlemen, again, if you want to really get an education, go on a search engine and type in chemtrails into Google or Yahoo or Alta Vista, wherever you go, and you will be absolutely amazed at what you're going to find there. Please, this is not just people making stuff up. Those of you who are pilots, and especially commercial pilots, know that when you're flying from east to west, you have specific altitudes assigned and you have specific corridors assigned. Same thing when you're flying west to east, east to west, you're at different altitudes. The crisscrossing patterns could only be done by the military. It is not commercial that's doing it. And the entire issue of weather modification and the extremes that we're having are absolutely startling. I was watching what was going on in North Carolina and obviously Texas, Oklahoma last week, and we're seeing the most, what I would say, contrived cloud formations, or some people would say manufactured, that most people have ever noticed. In other words, even the meteorologists they have words to describe them, but when I put them on the spot and say, in all of your meteorological studies up until now, have you ever seen them personally or even seen photographs of what you're describing? And most of them will bow their head and say no. So, ladies and gentlemen, what we're experiencing is a new phenomenon. It is heretofore not photographed. They are heretofore non-existent. And when you're dealing with the sprites and the jets in the upper atmosphere that have been so incredibly photographed and they just look fabulous and wild, know this, that everything that can be done to the upper electromagnetic, our atmosphere, forgive me, our ionosphere, has been articulated, it has been nuked, Project Argosy, we have bombed it, we have bombarded it, and listen, there is a payday, because, matter changes in its form, and we're now experiencing some phenomenological weather that cannot be explained by the textbooks. Oh, people can describe it, but they can't explain it, and when they do explain it, it's pretty hokey. There were parts of Colorado, I don't know if you saw this, either Sunday or Saturday, where the winds were gusting to 100 miles an hour, almost in microbursts, and actually blew 3 heavy-laden semi-trucks, 18-wheelers, completely off the highway. Just moved them, just like a big hand just pushed them off. So everyone, we are, again, experiencing the mother of all weather phenomenon, and it's only getting worse and worse from here. Let's go to James. He said, Steve, multiple E's and X's over Shepherd Air Force Base, Wichita Falls, Texas. And ladies and gentlemen, that is a fascinating subject right there. The E's and X's, the reason why the E's and X's, those are tracked by satellite to check the dispersal of the chemical spray. If you don't think they're spraying, look to the west if you've got a clear sun around sundown, and you'll see kind of an orangish or a purplish mist many times, almost like a halo around the setting sun. So we're messing with stuff that we have yet. Listen, we're sowing to the wind. We're going to reap the whirlwind. Let's see what Sally says. Okay. Oh, here's something from someone anonymous. Sally sent it, but she said someone sent it to her. There will be no nukes. The government already has a plan to use biologicals on America this summer. Al-Qaeda and or domestic terrorists will be blamed. Everything depends on how the Democrat and Republican National Convention turns out, if they occur at all. The 2004 elections will not be what the American public are normally accustomed